Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Well, greetings from the Wasteland and welcome to another edition of The Record Show. And we've got a great one coming your way today. Ken is back with us and we'll have a look at all of this week's new releases headed to an indie record store near you, including one in particular, which is a reissue of an iconic Alice Cooper release. And we'll also hear from the Coop himself about the original design of the album that is coming back out this Friday. But first, Detroit's underground techno music scene is alive and thriving, and the city itself serves as the inspiration for a new vinyl that has come out. It's a collaboration between an Italian artist and one of Detroit's premier DJs. Well, joining us now on The Record Show is a staple of Detroit's underground music scene, one Miss Rebecca Goldberg. Rebecca, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. So excited to do this with you. Thank you.
Cool. Now, I need to start with a little bit of a disclaimer. I come from an era, heck, I did it for a living for a while, where being a DJ meant sitting in a darkened radio studio, spinning records to an unseen audience over the airwaves. And now that is really something that is rare now, and really it doesn't exist in radio anymore. But today, being a DJ means something else, and that is what you are. Could you please tell us what it is to be a DJ in this day and age?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for my experience. I think it's vastly different for everybody, and maybe that's the biggest change from what you were speaking to, which isn't completely gone. I've definitely DJed on radio stations in poorly lit environments with a lot of luggage, and you know, the beauty of our era is you can reach more people with less. And I don't mean, you know, music per se, but music is accessible in the digital world now. So we can share music that we love to so many people. And to me, you know, I DJ at live events, which are back up and running again, which is incredible. And the dynamic of playing for a live audience is part of DJing. And I also, you know, record podcasts or broadcasts at home that are played internationally. So it can mean a lot of things, but that's what it means to me.
Not too far off from the days of radio, but definitely, I guess, evolved. How's that?
Right.
Now, I mentioned the Detroit underground scene, and this is a thriving environment and hopefully back to normal completely very soon. But tell me about what that type of music is. When we say underground, we're talking techno, we're talking, I want to say electronic in some reasons, but that's not quite the definition, is it?
You know, to me, underground just means like independent. I personally use those words interchangeably. And electronic music, you know, it's definitely more mainstream than it's ever been, and that's why some people now shy away from using an umbrella term like electronic music or EDM, but some of it is very commercialized. But the world that I exist in, you know, I produce my own music. It's released on an independent label. It's not, you know, a corporate entity or environment. It's very creatively free. And the people that are promoters and having these events that this music is played in kind of function outside of that corporate mainstream world. So it's kind of like its own little society and self-sustaining ecosystem, if you will. All the players are necessary, from the artists to the venues, the promoters, the attendees are a huge part of it. You can buy, not to knock big shows, but you can spend your money with Live Nation and go to a stadium and see something that's very produced and corporate, or you can go to your local, nightclub and check out someone who's independently releasing music.
Now, for DJs doing this, now the equipment I would assume does involve a turntable, but it also expands a little bit into the digital side of things. Is this a great marriage of that old analog style, the feel that comes with spinning physical records, and the more electronic or digital side of things?
For me personally, I still play records. A lot of people don't, and there are purists out there. I love records, and I learned DJing as a very tactile, physical type of work, and using multiple senses other than listening. Like, it's very touch oriented for me. But it's also a backbreaker to carry your records around sometimes. And we have this technology where you can digitize your music and, come to a gig with a USB stick that holds more music than your standard record crate ever could. And there's pros and cons to both. Sometimes I play a lot better when I have less choices. So I just have what's in my record bag, and that's all I'm working with that time. But sometimes it's nice to be more versatile, and your body appreciates it. And there are functions on this the CDJ, XDJ technology that's the standard now that you can't do with records. And there's technique to both. I can use both interchangeably, and different environments and parties or atmospheres, might require me to do one thing versus another. And as far as production goes, digital and analog synthesizers, drum machines, electronic instruments, I mean, it's an endless choice, I guess. So building your studio and what tools you want to work with is just varying person to person.
Now, you are based out of a city that has a very long and very, very rich musical history, from the likes of Motown to the acid sounds of the rock of the late 60s to even some of the more poppier sounds coming through in the 80s. Does that play into the work that you do as well? I mean, obviously in the new album, which we'll talk about here in a bit, but just the history of Detroit, how does that influence the style of music that you create?
I would say maybe it's even more indirect than direct, but I mean, I'm just surrounded by it. So the influence of Motown is all around us at all times, whether we're hearing it or experiencing it. Jazz is all around us at all times. Now, techno's been around, 30, 40 years. So that is just constantly around. So we have great radio here. I listen to WDET out of Wayne State very often. Ed Love's jazz show and Chris Campbell's Progressive Underground show are really big influences on what I'm listening to, which is all sorts of music. It's not just electronic based or techno based music. So we are blessed to just have an abundance of creativity that comes out of here.
Now, that channeling of the creativity has resulted in you creating a lot of your own music. You are now have released rather, your fourth album of Acid Underground. Tell us a little bit about this new release, Buildings.
Yeah, Buildings. It's my fourth record for Detroit Underground. It's my fifth vinyl release. A label mate of mine and I, Stefano in Italy, he and I decided to collaborate on a release. It's not something either of us have done before. So by throwing in that challenge, and in some ways an obstacle. We're in separate countries, can't go back and forth, can hardly speak the same language without a translator, but we both do music and came together to do this like homage to Detroit record. Musically, a very big influence for him, all the Detroit music, but for me, I'm actually here, so we kind of would just boost each other up, and ended up finishing this album together.
Now, the album title alludes to buildings, and you have, I've seen that the album's music is really influenced by the structures that you see around you. And Detroit, much as it is musically, has another rich architectural history, some of it crumbling, some of it beautiful still. That all worked into this album as well?
Yes. The crumbling buildings are beautiful too. So that's something I enjoy seeing and looking at. I mean, it's just a part of our landscape right now, but more literally, the track titles are named for some of my favorite buildings in the city: the Guardian Building, Renaissance Center, the Michigan Central Station, and just the overall industrial landscape that we have. And I love Art Deco architecture. It's rare in a big city in 2021 to not have, just glass all over the place. So I spent a lot of time downtown, so it made it easy to, we were assigned the title, and it all just kind of fell into place after that.
Now, you also went the extra step, and we talked about this whole idea of analog and the rich history of vinyl too, as well. But you pressed this on vinyl. Is that
Right.
something that is? I think it would go hand in hand with being a DJ. You'd almost want to have your work on a piece of something that's flat, black, and circular that you can spin at your events.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, I collect records and I play records. So for me, it only makes sense to make records. It's not always financially sustainable, so I don't blame anyone that sticks to the digital release and digital world. But records have had a standing like popularity, but especially recently. And I was working in shops for a few years and definitely saw sales take off during lockdown times. I think without live music and concerts and experiences, people were really investing in their home collections and home fidelity and listening. So having that physical thing, I'm lucky enough to have grown up before a lot of that dissipated, with a Walkman and a Discman and a tape collection, and going to Harmony House and still going to record stores. So it's only natural that my work is going to be a part of that too.
So it's great that Buildings is available on vinyl, but where can folks get a hold of that, and where can folks see more of your work?
Well, I am, of course, going to send everyone to Radio Wasteland. You can pick
Thanks.
up Buildings and my previous release on Detroit Underground called Synthetic World, which I released just as lockdown pretty much hit for us here in the States. Very telling of the time period, and both are great records. Lots of independent shops around Detroit, Detroit Record Club here in Royal Oak, Detroit Threads in Hamtramck, Spotlight Records, a new shop in Detroit. We've got 37th Shield Library in Eastern Market, which is where I'm having a record release party this weekend. There's some places in Miami, Phoenix, shout out Grand Avenue Records. So I have made it a point to make relationships with these independent record stores because their longevity is vital to what we're all doing here.
Thank you.
I just saw that internationally you can get it through Juno Records, Dex, HHV, and my favorite place, my Bandcamp. I'm gonna just plug that. It's 313acidqueen.bandcamp.com. And all of my work previous up through now is there. So if you're interested, I would love it if you checked it out.
We will be sure to put all of those links down in the description below in this video so people can visit you and enjoy your work as well. Well, Rebecca, thank you very, very much again for joining us here on the Record Show. We're looking forward to carrying your album here in our store, and I know a lot of other great stores are proud to have that work that you do in there as well.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Joining us now on the Record Show, Ken Norton from Ingram Entertainment to get us caught up on all of this week's new releases. Some cool stuff headed to an indie record store near you this coming Friday. Ken, how's it going today?
Going well. How you doing, Joe?
Good. There's some fun ones and a big one that we were a little sketchy, but it made it because it had one delay, didn't it?
It did. The Alice Cooper School's Out special deluxe anniversary edition, which is a gatefold to emulate a school desk. I think going back to the original, release of it. And as you well know, there's a special bonus in there.
The panties make a return, and hopefully they won't recall these as a fire hazard like the first one.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Do you know if is it going to be random colors like they were in the first one, or is it all fairly uniform? Have you heard?
I have no idea.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen anything more about it since they sold it to us about 2 months ago.
I guess we'll find out together at some point. Cool. So that is this Friday. That's the big one, I think, for Friday, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's
and
it.
We've got some other good ones too.
I sure do. Brand new album from Buck Cherry. It's just a solid hard rock band people know about and like quite a bit. There's a Miles Davis, Merci Miles. I think that's the first time on vinyl, or at least in a very long time, from 1991 live performance, one of his last live performances. And there's a couple of unreleased songs from this set that were written by Prince, evidently.
Really?
This particular version.
Wow.
I just found that out today.
That will be cool.
Pretty interesting. And let's see, Goo Goo Dolls have a rarities collection coming out this week. Acoustic versions, radio performances, international releases, non-album tracks, things like that. Something for the fans for sure. A Peter Murphy 1995 record called Cascade is going to be coming out this week. A couple of My Morning Jacket albums on colored vinyl. You've got Evil Urges on a black and cream mix colored vinyl. You've got It Still Moves on a golden smoke colored vinyl. And let's see, also on colored vinyl, White Lion, Best of White Lion, 2LP gatefold colored vinyl. Don't have the color on that one. And not colored vinyl, but double black vinyl and newly remastered at Abbey Road. A couple of Queensryche classic hard rock metal albums from the 80s, Empire and Operation Mindcrime.
A lot of folks looking forward to those too, I think, as well. So
they should sound good.
Good. Now, the other big news is that it seems like we just wrapped up drop number 1, but RSD Record Store Day drop number 2 is approaching very, very quickly. And I got a note from you guys that it looks like you're getting your ducks in a row, so to speak, as far as those releases go.
Yeah, that's right. We're getting very close to shipping those now for the 17th. You know, it's a little ways off, but it takes a while for the machine to turn. So another terrific set of titles. People should be very excited about. For the most part, everybody's getting a little bit of everything that they wanted, with very few exceptions. So,
and since we last talked, the Foo Fighters made that surprise announcement about their album, which is half Bee Gees covers and half live. So that's going to be a biggie for this RSD drop, isn't it?
Yeah, we do think so. Yeah, absolutely. Possibly the biggest in terms of what I saw from orders from stores. that might be the biggest record of this drop.
I know here at our store, we got a lot of interest in that when the announcement was made. We'd gotten a note saying, don't say anything yet. Don't say anything yet. And then I started getting messages from some of our customers saying, are you going to get this? Are you going to get this? I guess the Foo Fighters jumped the gun a little bit and announced it on their Facebook page before Record Store Day did.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Too much to hold back. They just had to let the world know.
It happens.
Now, side note to this, the Foo Fighters just played this past weekend the first return to the first full capacity concert at Madison Square Gardens in New York City this weekend.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. And I hear tell from some very well-informed sources that it was an absolutely phenomenal experience. So here's looking at that Record Store Day one too.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. It's Foo Fighters. They call themselves the DGs, Dave Grohl, the DGs, and doing the. It's all Bee Gees on one side, and I think a live performance on the other.
Now, I took a sneak listen to something online, one of their cuts from the Bee Gees side of things, and I'll be darned if it's not a fairly faithful disco rendition of it. So This is going to be interesting. Yes. I mean, it was definitely the Foo Fighters. You could recognize that, but they didn't really take too much hard rock liberties with it. It to me, at least, seemed fairly faithful.
Okay. Looking forward to hearing it.
We'll get there soon enough. All right, Ken, thank you very much for updating us this week, and hope to talk to you again next week.
Okay, great, Jim. Have a great week.
And finally today, as Ken mentioned a little while ago, this Friday we'll see the much-anticipated reissue of Alice Cooper's iconic Schools Out album. This re-release will feature the design of the original, which, as we've talked about before, featured a cover that folded out into the shape of a school desk. And when you open that up inside, yep, it was the iconic panties inside. Now, the new release is going to have panties inside as well. The original became highly collectible because of the rarity of the panties and whether or not they'd survive after all of these years. We'll just have to wait and see how that reissue plays out and whether the new panties will be as collectible as the old ones. Many of you also know a couple of months back we got a chance to talk with Alice Cooper himself, and he covered the original design concept for Schools Out.
Warner Brothers gave up on designing our packaging. And they finally just said, you guys know how to sell yourself better than we do. You have to remember, 3 of us in the band were art majors. And so they would show us a cover and we'd go, no. And then we would show them a school desk that opened up and there were panties inside. And they went, yeah, okay, that's really good, you know. And then $1 billion babies. Well, of course, it's going to be a wallet, a snakeskin wallet. When you open it up, there's $1 billion bill in there. Back then, you could do all that because the record companies knew you were going to sell 3 or 4 million records. So they could afford to do that. But we kind of injected our art and our sense of humor into our packaging. And we basically found guys, you know, in the business, Pacific Ioneer, who had as dark a sense of humor as we did.
Watch out, here I come. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, round, 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 round. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, round, 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 round.
Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.